Public Broadcasters International Seoul 2018. Welcome to Session 2, Content Strategies for the Evolving Media Ecosystem. The content ecosystem has become complex with the advent of platforms such as YouTube, Netflix, and emerging contenders that combine traditional media values of impartial news and fair information with internet-based technology of social networking. Can public service media become a winning player in the increasingly competitive global content market? Should we cooperate with digital platform operators to diversify content and produce commercially viable content? The key words of the content market have shifted to concepts such as data mining and influencers. What is happening in the content ecosystem? To tackle the questions, we have 4 presentations. First is Mr. Paul Thompson, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of New Zealand's RNZ, whose speech is titled Radical Sharing. Next is Ms. Xiao Wenxie, President and CEO of Taiwan's PTS, who will talk about optimizing content strategy in the digital era, the case of Taiwan PTS. She will be followed by Mr. Gonçalo Raiz, CEO of Portugal's RTP, presenting Keep Calm and Carry On, staying competitive in a fast-changing world. Finally, we will hear from Mr. Murat Aku, Managing Director of TRT World and TRT Al Arabiya. Mr. Thompson will chair the Q&A session afterwards and will be joined by the speakers, Mr. Michele Zata, Head of International Co-Production of Italy's RAI. Opening the session is Mr. Paul Thompson, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of RNZ. Mr. Paul Thompson.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, all the way from Aotearoa, New Zealand. What a great welcome. I've never been welcomed in the manner that I just have, so I feel good to be here, and also a warm welcome to my fellow panellists. It's a really good lineup, reflecting a range of perspectives, expertise from every corner of the world, so I'm sure it'll be a good session. The sharp-eyed among you would have noticed that there has been a change, that we have a new panellist. So I would like to introduce Riyad Minty, who is the Acting Director of Digital for TRT World and TRT Arabic. And while it's very sad that we lost the other panellist, but he's still here in the audience, I think, and that Riyad's come in, I do think it's great to get a digital exponent, someone who is younger, to reflect that perspective on the panel. So great to have you here. Okay, a couple of years ago, I was talking with my team, and we asked ourselves 4 questions. They were, number 1, what would happen if we shared all our news, current affairs, programming, entertainment, podcasts, and video with all other outlets in order to increase our value to the public? The second question was, if we were brave and stupid enough to do that, would it damage or enhance our audience engagement? Would it erode the audiences who come to our brands and platforms, or would it support it? We also wondered whether doing this would damage the respect and trust that people have in RNZ. And lastly, we thought, well, if we get it right, perhaps we could get some useful content in return. This was an experiment. It was quite an informal approach to it based on the conversation I've just shared. And also I just want to touch on the fact it's very specific to the New Zealand market and to RNZ, and it's the particular way that we operate. So whilst there may be some interesting ideas for the rest of you in this, I would suggest that this has worked because of the particular circumstances that we operate in. New Zealand's a small place, 5 million people. It's a successful, open democracy. A Pacific nation now, but very isolated, with a very small and rather thin local media scene, with not a lot of scale. We have no national news wire in New Zealand. It was closed about 5 years ago. And we've also got a fragmented public media sector, because while RNZ, the organisation I work for, is commercial free and public service, the rest of public funding, media funding in New Zealand goes to commercial players, including a state-owned TV network that is completely commercial. RNZ, where I work, we are commercial free, we are public service, 2 years ago, when we were thinking about this, we were wrestling with funding constraints. We were trying to think about how we could demonstrate value to a Conservative government who didn't particularly value us. And we were only reaching about 25% of the population, which is quite low, but reflects the fact that whilst we're number one in the radio market, we were very much starting from a radio base and just starting to push out into multimedia. So really the questions were, how can we do better? How can we lift our game? And would radical sharing help? We like to think, just before I go into this, we like to think about our business not about distribution first, and I've noticed today there's been a bit of a tendency to do that, to be frank, that often when we think about what we're doing, we immediately jump to the technology or the platform. We like to think of A, B, C, D. We always start with audience, then we go to the brand, the promise, then we start to think about programming, and we think about distribution last. And I think the radical sharing strategy I'm sharing now does reflect that that's our view. If we get the other bits right, distribution is something we can be really open about. We just want it to be everywhere. We're publicly funded, and our view is that if the government invests in us, we should extract the maximum value, get it to as many people as possible, and we don't have to do that all under our own steam. If we get it to more people, we grow the value of that public investment and we strengthen our case for new funding. But also, if we're sharing it with commercial outlets, we can piggyback and take advantage of their different audiences. So by doing this, the proposition was that we'd get to people who aren't familiar with us at the moment, we'd raise our brand and actually diversify our audiences. Also really important that we were seen to be helping support commercial and non-profit outlets at a time when they're under a lot of pressure. How could we be part of a solution? Build relationships, lift our brand and buy marketing and profile that we couldn't afford, and try to get our staff to like it. And the challenge of getting staff to get behind this was one of the things we had to deal with. And be accessible, relevant and useful, which are such core public service values. So being everywhere. And be part of a solution to the very difficult problems that the whole media sector is facing, including our commercial colleagues. I just wanted to quickly talk about RNZ Pacific. This is our international service. It is both a very small service and a very big service. It's small because it's about $2 to $3 million budget and about 20 staff. It's big because it covers a massive part of the globe and it provides the most credible news and information service into that very challenged region. And we still do shortwave. And we've always shared our rich content with local newspapers and local radio stations throughout the Pacific, and obviously radio's still king in the Pacific. So the idea of radical sharing actually has its roots in our Pacific service, where it's given us enormous clout in the region. So the strategy, we just wanted to make it easy. We didn't want to tie people up in complex rights agreements. We just have a very standard approach. We never do exclusive deals. We can shape certain elements of a content deal with a partner according to what they'd like. They might like more video, they might want youngest material, they might be interested in our music material, but no one has an exclusive deal. We wanted to try things and experiment, and we wanted to be relaxed about it. We wanted to actually come in with an idea that we'd see what worked and not get too worked up. It's non-commercial. We primarily give it away. At times we may have a very small revenue share based around video, but it's bringing in peanuts, so it was non-commercial to its core. We always want to get the metrics back. We want to know who's engaged with the content, who they are, what they're like, how are they doing it, so we can build that into our reporting metrics and to be able to measure our growing reach. And we want it to be based on mutual respect as partners, where even if we're working with a very small outlet, like a tiny newspaper on the west coast of New Zealand, we wanted to come into it with a mutual view that we would help them and they would help us. And these are just some of the partners we've got. It's a range of big and small, and basically right throughout the New Zealand market. These ones up on the screen now are ethnic media, who are talking to a very different group that we wouldn't normally appeal to. And their audiences are now getting access to our rich news and current affairs. It's worked really well. And this is just a range of newspapers and the major news websites in New Zealand. So from the smallest player to the largest player, we now have these relationships. And it's gone really well. It is all about growing our audiences, getting to new people. This is just an example of some of our content. An audio interview from our flagship current affairs show in the morning, appearing on the biggest website in New Zealand within their coverage of the issue. That gives us enormous reach that we'd never be able to get ourselves. But as you can see, it's branded. We're developing content collaboratively, so we've gone into co-production with some of them. We're pushing into podcasts and again sharing all of those. Pushing into content far beyond our radio core, but also everything we do supporting our legacy in great audio storytelling. And it has actually worked. Just want to run through some figures here. 6 out of 10 New Zealanders value us as a service, which may sound quite low to some of you in the room, but you have to remember that we've got that radio focus. We've never had the reach of television, and this strategy is designed to push us into multimedia and start to give us those kind of numbers. So it's growing, and I'm going to really race here. This is just numbers showing that the awareness of our material, both on our brands and platforms and on our sister outlets, is growing, and this is really interesting. It's increased trust. So not only has it kept our radio stations and digital brands stronger than ever, we're at record levels, it hasn't cannibalized at all, as well as growing new audiences through our partners. We are now the most trusted media outlet in New Zealand, so we think it's worked at the moment. It's still an experiment and it's in its early days, but we're really pleased with it. It's a key part of our strategy. We're going to keep trying new things and see what works. We want to position RNZ as an essential service. When we go and see the government about funding, we want to talk about being available to everyone, anywhere, how they want, on our platform and on other people's. And we want to maintain that high level of trust and just be where the people want us to be. So that's all, thank you. And I think I made it in time. Thank you. So I should have said before, there are a series of presentations which we'll move through now, and then time for questions at the end. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Zhao here to speak from PTS in Taiwan.
안녕하세요. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm Wenjie Chao from PTS Taiwan. I'm delighted to be here to join the discussion on our content strategy in this ever-changing digital era, and I will present the case of PTS as an example. Okay. Media landscape has changed dramatically in Taiwan. 2016 was marked as year of OTT because the two dominant partner players, Netflix and iQIYI, entered Taiwan market. The OTT streaming is open not just for the big companies, but for the locally oriented ones as well. For example, there are several major OTT streaming platforms oriented in Taiwan, like KKTV, Charcoal TV, and Line TV. According to a survey in Taiwan, OTT content delivery is being recognized as a must-have and no longer as a nice-to-have solution. Okay. And more than 77% of Taiwan audience watch TV programs through OTT platforms. I was one of them. Okay. In order to respond to the phenomenon, we proactively develop for strategic plans as below. Okay. First, we stick to the core value of PSM. No matter how media landscape changes, content remains at the heart of PSM. Our mission is present quality programs with the core value of diversity and localization. Stories are never-ending journeys. We see ourselves as the storytellers to express the beauty of Taiwan through PTS programs, which wish to light the passion of audience and build up their attachment to the local communities. Okay. This is our flagship program, a historical drama series, Lady the Butterfly. It's still in production and will be launched in 2020. With 10 episodes, this series has comparatively high budget considering the given production, population, and market size in Taiwan. But what makes this series notable is not only its production scale, but also the public value that we consider important for Taiwan. Okay, first of all, it is a Taiwan-themed story, adapted from the novel of the same title, based on the Rover incident in 1867. The incident has a profound impact on Taiwan diplomacy, as well as on the complicated ethnic relationship domestically. To bring this hidden story to light, we have conducted abundant research at the pre-production stage. We hope to promote mutual understanding among different ethnic groups in Taiwan and promote racial harmony in the future. In this changeable digital era, different content platforms offer multiple options to viewers and successfully fragment their attention. Hence, quick question comes directed to mind. Where can we precisely locate our target audience? An essential principle followed by we go wherever the audience go. In this sense, we developed PTS Plus, a subscription-based VOD streaming service, launched on 16th October last year. Currently, it has more than 1,000 hours of programs on it, including the dramas, documentary, and talk shows. And we have more than 220,000 subscribers to this service. Right now, PTS Plus is available in Taiwan territory, and the app service is to be launched at the end of this year. Okay, I'm gonna show you the screenshot of the website. And as you can see, the color of the logo of PTS Plus is pink. It's right on the left corner of the screenshot. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of pink color, but we aligned with the young generation's preference and give the new logo a cute image. On the other hand, we try to think outside the box. Instead of staying traditional, we learn to embrace social media and rethink how program can be better presented to its target audiences. Through more different outlets coming up next, we would like to share one of our successful shows created for teenagers in Taiwan, Youth News at PTS. Youth News at PTS is a program tailor-made for youth aged 13 to 18. The program tackles important issues affecting youth, especially the millennials who are digital natives. The first season of the program was launched in 2016. At that time, it was a 30-minute program aired weekly. Starting from the second season this year, however, we present the program on the internet in short formats, with social medias as the main outlets and a live streaming session inviting internet celebrities to join the live discussion. With the case of this program, we no longer take the result of TV rating as the key performance indicator. Instead, we analyze our online fans and followers caring about their demography and numbers, which means we try to shift our traditional focus on TV channel to new platforms. Okay. We also established the Taiwan Citizen Journalism platform named People in 2007. People set a milestone in the digital development by creating a completely new way for individuals in Taiwan to address their own issues freely on the platform. The pronunciation of people is also similar to Taiwanese pepbo, which means smart way of doing things. And the first strategy I would say is to think beyond TV. When we shift from public service broadcaster to public service media, we need to broaden our scope and to tell or retell story in innovative and vigorous manner to deeply engage with our audience. To embody our strategy in thinking beyond TV, here is an example of digital storytelling launched in August. It's our official website for our historical drama series, Buhistava in Storm, adapted from the acclaimed novel of the same title written by Chen Shunchen, who is a Taiwanese born and grew up in Japan. We adapted it into a 4-episode mystery mini-series. To arouse the curiosity of the viewers before we officially launched the program, we built up an interactive website combining a vast of materials, including archival images, literatures, and so on, so that the audience can get a closer look at the story and be supplied with more clue about the detective narrative in different ways. With this interactive and supplementary experience, we hope to increase the viewers' interest in the program. The entire website is designed to guide the audiences to find the clues, know the characters, understand the relationship between the characters, and finally solve the mystery. Another important point is by building the website with 360 panoramic images. We successfully preserve the precious shooting scenes in a holistic way. Our new media team developed the script of the digital narrative website at the very beginning of the shooting in 2017. This enabled us to collect several sets of 360 panoramic scenarios from the real shooting scenes, which is helpful in the scene preservation. This website provides more immersive experience for the website users. And I'm going to close my presentation with this picture, A Road to Unknown. This picture truly illustrates how I feel as a PSM leader in a time of changes. But where goes the saying, where there is shadow, there is light. In a time of uncertainty, we believe that new opportunity and possibilities are always lying ahead. What we need is to stay open-minded and dare to try new approaches while being alert to the changing media ecology and adhering to the basic value of PSM. We are still trying, and you are our best partners. We believe that our common efforts can help to shed light on the changing media landscape in this digital era. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Ms. Chow. Very interesting talk, and I'm sure there'll be questions on that later. I'd now like to introduce Gonzalo to give his talk.
Good afternoon to you all. It's great to be here at PBI. It's great to be in Seoul, and great to be in Asia. Actually, before coming here, we spent a couple of days in Macau, and it always amazes me that Portugal, being a very small country, we have expats community everywhere. So we have people in Australia, and actually we have a community of Portuguese-speaking people in Macau, and actually we broadcast our contents there through TDM, which is the national operator. So Asia does matter for us. The point that I'd like to make today is that we do live in very turbulent and disruptive times, and in a fast-changing media environment, but counterintuitively, those times and this changing environment can actually be beneficial to public service broadcasters. And if we play our cards well, we can really benefit and really affirm our central position in the current environment. The first thing is that we have to address the facts, and the facts is that it is indeed a very disruptive trends that we are living in. It's a whole new world. I mean, social networks are there and are competing directly with us. Younger audiences are, in a certain way, disconnecting from traditional TV. Non-linear programming is there to stay. The OTTs are very important players now. And we have to acknowledge this. I always tell our teams that the most important thing for us is to really don't underestimate these realities. So change is here. Change is not in a distant place. Change is now. So it's not in a reality that will come in a few years ago, and it is affecting all our segments. Younger people, older people, all are changing their behaviors, and we will not get back to a safe and predictable environment anymore. So let's not underestimate the challenges and the threats that we have here. But, and this but is very important, I believe that public service broadcasters can actually position themselves very well in this environment. Because on the one hand, we have all this fragmentation and people have endless choices. But in such a fragmented world, people also need reference institutions, they need anchors, they need reliable players, and public service institutions are or can be those players. I mean, our values, as Tony Hall said this morning, our values, the value of diversity and quality and moderation and quality programming and serious journalism are very important. And if you pay attention, the areas where public service broadcasters are very strong are very important in the current environment. News is very important. Sports is very important. Direct programming is very important. Local presence is very important. Having a global presence is very important. And those are areas where public service broadcasters are in many ways stronger than commercial competitors. So it's very interesting that the strengths that we have are very relevant in this changing media environment. And also, I believe that in a changing digital and innovation culture, it is very important. We benefit from innovation because our institutions are incumbents. We are decades long, so we gain a lot of energy by bringing some of, say, the startup culture and the energy that we gain by teaming up with new players, by working, say, in a network environment. So this is very interesting for us as well. I think that we all have to put innovation and digital in the center of our strategies. We have been trying to do this at RTP in Portugal. We know that to remain a relevant public service broadcaster, we cannot only be a TV and a radio operator, we have to be a digital operator. We have dozens of new initiatives, new apps, newsletters, online products, initiatives that merge different platforms. We are betting a lot on our iPlayer capabilities. We are programming fiction and in a way that gives more a better experience for people who go to our iPlayer. And actually, digital is allowing us to reach to a larger audience. 40% of the people who access our online services are from abroad, okay? So those are Portuguese expatriates living abroad or Portuguese who travel a lot. So digital has really allowed us to increase our market. I believe also that innovation is a lot about developing big and bold projects. And I'd like to present, I have a short video now. I'd like to present two projects that we have launched recently and which have been very important in mobilizing the organization for the future. One is letting our historical archives, bringing them to online. We did this when we celebrated our 6th decade, so we wanted to do something forward-looking, and we basically started to make our archives accessible to every citizen for free on our digital platforms. They are organized, programming information by decade and by subject, so there is a curatorial work there. But this really changed the way that RTP is perceived by the Portuguese citizens. And this also changed the relationship that each citizen has with RTP, okay? Because they can now interact, they can use our archives, they can share them on Facebook, and it's very interesting. And another project that we had is we did win and we did organize Eurovision in Lisbon last year. I think it was a wonderful opportunity. Sometimes people are scared and organizations are scared about winning the Eurovision. There's this kind of the winner's curse because it's very expensive and complicated. We really tried to use it to our benefit. We came with some, I believe, elegant solutions, low-cost solutions, but that try to project a modern look and a modern attitude from RTP and from Portugal, and actually it mobilized our organization a lot. So we have these videos showing these two big, bold projects, which in a way are examples of our innovation strategy. Thank you.
RTP, the Portuguese Public Media Service, has created RTP Archives, a free and universal gateway to the country's largest audiovisual archive. Today, RTP Archives has over 40,000 content items. Public reaction has been a true success, with over 7.8 million page views and more than 1.5 million unique viewers. Launched over a year ago, this platform has advanced search tools, contextualized information, and over 50 theme collections that grow day by day. It is an open window to a collective memory, a voyage through several decades of Portuguese history, its presence around the world, and of course, the history of Europe. An online platform co-sponsored by the European Union that is currently going through massive digitalization of over 60 years of sounds and images. A guided tour through radio, photographic and television contents and its related metadata. A strategic ambition for RTP that is taking shape under the motto that heritage is universal and timeless, and its free access is a clear mission for public service. RTP was faced with a wonderful challenge of hosting the Eurovision Song Contest in 2018. A unique challenge in terms of organization, logistics, technology, and above all, creativity. EBU acknowledged it as one of the best ever organized Eurovision Song Contests. This is a worldwide event, and RTP gave a strong contribution to its digital strategic development, given the record numbers in both linear and non-linear audiences, with a key focus on youth targets. Take these numbers. Out of the 186 million viewers from the TV broadcasts, 43% were young people. That was 4 times higher than the previous year. There were also 41 million unique viewers on YouTube in over 9 million hours viewed. There were 4 million engagement actions on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, with 34 million views of official Instagram stories. It was a proof that the digital world can be faced as a global opportunity to walk towards the future with spirit and innovation.
Thank you, Gonzalo. I'd like to introduce Riyadh to come and give his talk.
Thank you very much. So I know you said earlier that it's nice to have a young person on stage. I've been in the industry for about 15 years in digital media, so I'm actually considered quite old when it comes to the digital space, specifically with my team who are mostly millennials in their 20s, so I do feel quite old when I go to work every day. So, is the presentation up? All right, so I'm part of TRT World and I'm the director of the digital team. TRT World today broadcasts in 190 countries. On digital platforms, we're available on every major platform, and we're one of the most engaged news brands in the world, and that's just in about 2.5 years since we launched. It's safe to say that we're one of the fastest growing international news networks in the world. A lot of the time people ask me, why is Turkish radio and television launching a global channel? And so I'll take you through just a bit of a thought experiment. Right now in the world, in media, and in terms of how we exist between our different cultures, there's a crisis of perception, a crisis of understanding the other, the crisis of understanding different cultures, different people, and where we come from. So I just want to do a quick experiment with everyone here, and if you can just shout out the first word that comes to your mind when you see these cities. First word? Anyone? No first word? Seinfeld. Seinfeld. All right, London. First word? BBC. There you go. Istanbul? Anything? TRT? Okay. Paris? Eiffel Tower, City of Love, right? Aleppo? War. Baghdad? War. Kabul? War. Now, this is a massive challenge that we have, and I think for us to move beyond just having the sort of crisis reporting, there's a fantastic study that was done by a philosopher, Alain de Botton. He wrote a book called The News, and in it he goes through the dissection of this crisis of understanding. And what he explains is that the way in which we view the world through mainstream media and through public media in most of the Western capitals of the world is always seen as positive. New York is seen as the city of Seinfeld, or the city of movies, or the city of skyscrapers. Paris, the city of life, the Eiffel Tower. But as you start going to different parts of the world, our perception starts changing, because the steady state is always negative news. The steady state is always war. And these are countries that have hundreds of years of history, hundreds of years of understanding, hundreds of years of an immense, immense culture that has contributed to civilization. But yet the first thing that pops into our mind are these negative words. And I think for us in public service media and in any media, we have a duty to unpack not just the negative sides of this, is to actually show the steady state of everyday living in these countries, go back into the history, show the culture, show the diversity, show the beauty that we have, so that we can build this global world together. We can build a better world of understanding that other. And I think for me, that was one of the appealing reasons. I'm actually South African, and moving to Istanbul to join TRT World was that, is that what role can we play in breaking down the silos of understanding that we have? What role can we play in public service media in creating a better world for everyone? Now, coupled to that, we have a crisis of disruption. The internet is a very disruptive place, and as traditional broadcasters, we always like to say we're available in 250 million households. Nice number, but how many people are actually watching you? YouTube is available to 1 billion users every month. Facebook, over 1 billion users every month. So it's nice to throw these numbers out, but in reality, in the scale that's out there, we are a very, very, very small dot in the space. And it's continuously evolving. So if you look at the numbers in 2007, I'm not sure how many of you remember Friendster or High Five. They don't exist anymore. MySpace doesn't exist anymore. And by early 2018, this is what you have, a complete different, and these numbers were early, so these numbers are probably quite outdated by now. You had other platforms that came and just sort of disappeared over time. But it's rapidly evolving. YouTube, everyone's been talking about YouTube. I was previously at Al Jazeera for 10 years. And the way we started with the Al Jazeera archives, we used to take physical cassettes, digitize it, and upload it to YouTube back in 2007. And today, from my phone, you can just go live. And that's in 10 years. right? So this rapid pace of innovation is happening. We also have a crisis of relevance, and I've been presenting this slide for almost a decade. And this is the reality. Younger audiences just get their news from different platforms. They don't actually care. Because they have increasing choice, direct sources, consumers are now creators. And most importantly, people trust people first. I think that's the most important thing. I'm going to get my news not even from TRT World. I'm going to get it from a friend who shared an article with me because I trust that friend's reference. I don't actually care what that endpoint is. We're more likely to share from friends and more than something from a brand. So how do we keep up? The traditional TV model, and I think we've heard a lot of this today, is content, TV broadcast, web, and social engagement is a young team sitting in a corner office somewhere trying to come up with a future. The reality is the future is now. I mean, we can sit and have these discussions as much as we want, but the longer we wait, the longer we're going to be left behind. And this is the new economy. We've heard a lot about it from our fellow panelists already. Audience is at the center. Platforms, engagement, and content are all equally measured in this sort of space. Understand how and where we consume content. So it's not just about taking what you produce on TV and putting it on platforms. It's about tailoring it for different platforms. This is an example of something we did with the Rohingya crisis. So our TV shows work well for YouTube as an OTT platforms on your Apple TVs. For Facebook, we produce explainers that are standalone that contextualize this. We have our website, which is normal text. We have WhatsApp daily news briefs that go out. And then on Instagram, just an image. So how do we get into tailored content per platform? Because every audience is uniquely different. And it's about putting the audience first. It's putting the audience needs first. And this is sort of a metric that we look at. You can never be all of these to your audience. You can never be all of these to everyone that's there. But choose one or two in your content type, understand who you're serving and how you're serving them, and try and bring these values into your content production. Embrace rapid innovation. And this is the last thing that I'll say. I know it's difficult. We talk about legacy. We talk about 60 years of archives. At TRT, we have decades worth of archives. But we need to bring that startup culture. We need to learn to fail early, fail fast, and fail often. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Really don't. It's not as complicated as you think it is. You already have a talented team, most likely sitting there. Empower them to go out there. Empower them to experiment. Get the data. And if you're not learning by your mistakes, you're not growing. If you're going to continuously hold ourselves back, we're not going to develop. And then we're going to have all of these crises. We're never going to actually tackle this. We're never, ever going to be at that sort of cutting edge of technology and that intersection of audience. And for us, I think in public service media, I think this is the lesson that we should take, at least from the startup space. Learn to fail early, learn to fail fast, and learn to fail often. Thank you.
Thank you, Riha. That was an excellent talk. And our final speaker, before we get to questions, Mikhail.
Hello to everybody. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here in Seoul. My name is Michele Zatta, and I'm in charge of international co-productions for RAI. And I'm here on behalf of Tini Andreatta, the head of RAI Fiction. Please allow me a brief presentation of our company. We are by far the biggest media company of Italy. Our drama department develops and produces series and TV movies for 4 out of our 5 channels and for our fast-growing digital platform with an annual budget of around 200 million euro. RAI 1 is our main channel. It's the home of our big series and of the international co-productions. This autumn and winter, we have 3 big titles in a row. The first one is a second series of I Medici, The Masters of Florence, that, by the way, premiered yesterday evening, so I'm eager to know the share. The second one is My Brilliant Friend, taken from the novels of Elena Ferrante. And the third one is The Name of the Rose, that comes from the worldwide bestseller of Umberto Eco, and there is a huge co-production with AMC. All these series are thoroughly Italian. The Medici tells a story of the Renaissance, and thus is relevant not only to Italy, but to all of Europe, and obviously to all of the world. It is culture told with the language of drama. Whereas The Medici has been created by Frank Spotnitz, an internationally acknowledged showrunner, I would like to underline that The Name of the Rose and My Brilliant Friend have both a strong Italian creative lead. We wrote the last drafts of The Name of the Rose in Italian in order to preserve the soul of the book of Umberto Eco. Then obviously we translated it in English for our international cast, with John Turturro playing William de Baskerville and Rupert Everett playing Bernard Guy. The director is Italian, and we shot the series almost totally in Cinecittà, thus taking advantage of the incredible craftsmen of the Italian cinema. My Brilliant Friend is written and directed by Italians. This series represents a turning point for Rai Uno. It's not only a huge co-production with HBO and Fremantle, but it's the first time that we'll have subtitles on Rai Uno. We generally dub everything, but not this time. And so we will have subtitles from Neapolitan to Italian. So I'd say that's really a good example of local getting global. Passing over to Rai 2, the headline here is Pushing the Limits. Here we try to bring the youngsters back to the public broadcaster. That is an issue that most of us can share. We try to do it by innovating the genres. For example, telling a cop story from the point of view of the dead cop that has to investigate about his murder, on the premises that only if you're dead and only if you're a ghost, you understand the truth about yourself and about the others. Another example is wishing to tell the story of Italian immigrants to Germany in the 60s. We asked ourselves, how can we tell it in a modern, original way? So we decided that our main character is a werewolf that represents a good metaphor for the fear of the immigrants, for the suspicion towards the foreigners. So the key word here is innovation in terms of storytelling, visual impact, and style. This approach proved to be successful. The last 4 series of Rai 2 did extremely well in the international sales. On Rai 3, we test new formats, and we air the oldest soap opera of Italy that started in '96, and that was the training ground for many Italian talents, such as director Stefano Sollima, who then did Gomorra and now recently Soldado. By the way, it were the Australians who came to Naples to teach us how to speak the language of industrial fiction. On Rai 4, we experiment low-budget formats, and sometimes we find out that the lack of money is a strong push for creativity. Our competitors in Italy are Mediaset and Sky. But as everybody here knows, it's the international media landscape that is changing in a very dramatic way. The forecast of Netflix is that linear TV will soon come to an end and that many public broadcasters will face hard times. In order to give impact to this menace, Netflix is taking away our best talents, producers, directors, screenwriters. We know that this is happening worldwide. So we decided not to stand still anymore and to take action. In June, in France, we launched an alliance with 2 major European public broadcasters, France Télévisions and ZDF from Germany. The idea of the alliance is a little bit like that of the League of the 5 European Nordic countries. Our aim here is not only to share financial supplies, but essentially to share vision. Yesterday, the outstanding cook of the Korean television gave a very nice speech about junk food and food that is good for your health. And this is exactly the food we'd like to cook together at the Alliance. Our basic recipe is an idea, a concept that we can all share. In order to work well together, we have to learn to know each other. We have to share our needs, our fears. We have to confront our challenges, thus developing trust and faith in what we are doing. It's a matter of content, values, and people, rather than money. We are deeply convinced that the best decisions regarding the stories that should be told are taken by heart and instinct, not by marketing analysis and algorithms. Recently, we have announced the first 5 projects of the Alliance. Amongst them is Leonardo da Vinci, that will have an Italian lead, and Around the World in 80 Days. This is a project that comes from France Television. But there's also a small high-concept series called Survivors that comes from a bunch of youngsters that attended the School of Perugia for serious writers that dry fiction started 3 years ago. Because also this is one of our major tasks, to find talent, nourish it, let it grow. And so if Netflix takes away 5 screenwriters, we'll provide 10 new ones. Because talent is everywhere, but we must be capable to find it. With this idea in mind, we launched a platform 2 years ago where everybody can submit ideas and concepts, getting a feedback in 4 weeks' time. It is called Nessuno Escluso, which means nobody left behind. Because this is exactly what we should do as public broadcasters, give everybody a chance. And now, since images speak much better than words, please enjoy our visiting card.
Questo non può continuare a studiare.
Tanti l'esame, lo faccio stesso.
E vostra figlia è brava così in tutte le altre materie. Parlate con vostro marito, fatelo ragionare.
Perché avessi a studiare solito che è pure femmina.
Perché c'è proprio lui. A parlare con me, sta il fratello ricciato esso.
Rina, ma basta.
Ma capite che...
Basta! Questa cosa la scuola mente, non la voglio sentire più!
Elena! Scina, io vengo poco. Ma vengo. Crei, non te ne importa. Quello che fai tu o faccio io?
Fu in quell'occasione che mi convinsi che niente potesse fermarla e che anzi ogni sua disobbedienza aveva sbocchi che per la meraviglia toglievano il fiato.
Sono proprio contenta di vederti, Leno. Anche io.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikhail. So that is the presentations, and we've got about 10 minutes for questions, and I'm aware that there hasn't been a lot of time for audience interaction, so I thought I would firstly just ask whether anyone has any burning questions. They were very different presentations, lots to talk about there, but does anyone want to ask a question? Not a peep? I'll start things off. Riyadh, you talked about failing and the importance of trying things even if they don't work. Can you talk about how you encourage your team to feel comfortable with that? Because I think as an industry we're not great at it. Failure is often a huge loss of face and maybe the end of a career. So talk about how you coach your team through that. And I'd be really interested to know what your biggest failure is and what you learnt from it.
All right, so one thing is to not make editorial failures. So we make failures and we encourage it in terms of format. So we have continuous idea generation. We actually have an ideation and incubation team that are continuously coming up with new ideas for formats and styles. And we'll put those online. We'll see something will work. We'll try the same intro 2 or 3 times, put it out there, and let's see what works or doesn't work and get the data back. And based on the data, we'll sit down and have review meetings with the teams to say, actually, this intro in this version B worked better than version A, and let's make an iteration for the next sort of version. So it's a continuous sort of data-driven approach. And I think most big media organizations don't have data teams that do this. And I would highly recommend that probably the best investment any media company can make today is in a data team that can help drive this innovation, and more importantly, the learnings from that. In terms of my biggest failure, I would say there's a lot. I wouldn't necessarily just pick one. I think prior to joining, I was the founder of AJ Plus, and I think at the start of AJ Plus was kind of the app revolution that happened, and we wanted to launch an app at the same time as our social strategy. So we invested a lot of money and resources into the app, which got to the #1 download in the App Store in the US in the first week, but crashed. I think very big failure after that, and we learned from that in sort of iterating our approach from there, where we thought this was sort of the way people wanted to go, but it really wasn't, so we pivoted then to focus more on sort of the social strategy, and that was quite a big failure, I guess, in that sort of space.
Thank you. Do any of the other panelists want to volunteer a harsh lesson that they learned? No. Gonzalo, as a CEO, how do you encourage your team to change the culture of the organisation? Because you talked a lot about innovation. I think you talked very powerfully about how important it is. And often when I think of traditional public service broadcasting, it is quite a stable environment based on maintaining audiences and being cautious. How have you tried to coach and develop your team to change the culture to embrace innovation?
I think that public service broadcasters are a very specific animal. We're institutions more than corporations. We have our missions well defined in terms of like adding value and to the programming and to the content panorama in a certain market. But I think that more and more our organizations and our people and our management has to understand that we have to deliver value. We have to be very efficient. We have to be very transparent so that people understand what we are doing and people really value what we are doing. So I try to instill this idea that we are here not only to make great contents, but to really tell a narrative of what we have to do. Okay, so connecting to citizens, being very innovative, and really explaining our utility to everybody.
And what happens when you encounter resistance?
You always encounter resistance. I think that you have to concentrate on good and solid projects that people can make and can make a difference. These two examples, that like archives online and the Eurovision thing, are things that on the one hand show our organizations that we can do things that are innovative and that have a high standard even in an international way, and also they give confidence to our people that you can do more and more. Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Chow, you talked about the unknown path or the unknown road.
Yeah.
How are you going to help your staff gather the courage to walk down that road, and how are you going to lead them?
I think the most important thing is patience. You have to be very patient, and through a lot of communications, and you just talk to them and give them a chance to re-education themselves. And some of the workers, they are very dare to try new things. They are not afraid of failure or to take the risk. So probably you like encourage those who are dare to dream, and some of them, they will like influence others, and then just spend most of your time to communicate with all the colleagues. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, but you talked about the need to be patient. Do we have time? Do we have time to be patient? Can we afford to take time?
You try to find your own time. just like me, I spend a lot of time to talk to many colleagues who are always complain about their situation. They always complain about the the most ground level. They complain about the second level complain about the highest level, but you give them times. I spend all my leisure time to talk to them, and it helps. It really helps. Yeah.
No, thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes. There's a microphone just at the front here. If you could introduce yourself, please.
I am a radio producer from KBS, and I have a question to RTP. KBS has huge amount of database of video content and audio clips, and it is necessary to have a metadated archive to have not only for the efficiency of the production, but also for a new business model in the era of smart speakers. And so I have a question with regard to that. So what kind of metadata do you provide? And who are the major users or consumers, both domestically and internationally? And is the service only for like viewing or streaming, or can the users use for further uses? Like, does your company permit the users to use for their video production, or do they have to pay for that? And one more question is with regard to the music database. Because of the copyright and intellectual rights, I think it is your company cannot provide the live streaming or further use because of that. So how do you provide your music database for the users?
Okay, so you raised several key questions regarding this project. It's not a project anymore; it's a reality. So the service that we provide, which is the historical archives online. First, the process. We invested a lot on transposing the contents that we had in film and to digital. So there was a very long process for that. But at some point, we were confident and we had a solid base that we started to deliver it online to our people. We started with 6,500 contents, okay? And we have been adding 2,000 contents per month. So in the first year, we already reached 30,000 contents. And in the second year, we reached 70,000 contents. We have the goal of, in the next 3 years, providing all our historical archives online. Okay. When I say all, it means the contents that we can manage and the author rights that we manage. Okay. So that's all our news, documentaries, and programming that are say produced by RTP. So say international formats and music formats, those don't go into our historical archives. When we broadcast, say, the Champions League, I mean, it's not there in our archives because it's not like a specific program from RTP, or when we broadcast, say, a movie from Sony Pictures. So news, documentaries, and fiction, which is produced by RTP. Also, people can access, they can search freely, they can share on Facebook, they can view the times that they want, but we provide that service on a universal basis, so on a free basis. But if institutions want to use these contents, say, for a corporate event, so then you have a rate and you have to pay for that. Or if you have, say, an advertising agency that wants to use some seconds from our historical archives for an advertisement, then they pay for it, okay? So for individual uses, and it's free. For corporate uses, it's paid for. I guess I have answered that. And we are always investing on metadata, on tagging people and issues and by themes. We are investing a lot on that. Basically, those are the issues. Also, and the final point, which is, we not only provide these thousands of contents, but we organize them. Okay, so it is organized with a big differentiation, programs and news, and it is organized also by decades, chronologically, and by themes. So you've got like sports, culture, performing arts. There is this work, we call it the curatorial work that RTP does.
Can I have to?
It's very important as well. So we don't just drop the contents, we have to use them.
I've got 1 more minute. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Maybe you can have a talk later about some of the detail. Mikhail, I just had a quick question. We've got 1 minute. I was really taken by the, I think you can probably stretch it out a little, by the No One Left Behind motto. What a call to arms. And also the alliance. You know, you talked about the importance of content, values and people. Do you really think you can go up against the might of Netflix and win? And wouldn't you be better just hopping into bed with them?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about when we speak about drama, we speak about good stories. So let's deliver the best possible story, and we win.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. That's the end of the session. We've made it on time, and thank you for your time, and thank you to the panelists. Cheers.